Hey everyone, what is going on? It is Brian, and today we are taking a look at 10 available whiskeys for 2021. Now, throughout the year, I had a lot of people asking, what are some bottom shelf pours? What are some go-to drinkers? And I did two videos in the middle of last year, one about bourbon and one about rye, that were semi-available. They were things that pop up occasionally, or they were picks that I hoped that maybe would be in people's areas. But even those were still a little bit difficult for folks to find, or it still didn't come out in their area. So I wanted to make this video. This video goes in line with my top 10 allocated bourbons of the year. It goes in line with my top 10 single barrels that I did. This is in 2021. What were some of the readily available pours that I went to? Now keep in mind, I'm here in Kentucky, and some of the bottles on this list I think are going to reflect that. My hope is on this list is that you can walk into a store and pick it up off the shelf. So that is what I have in mind when I'm talking about these whiskeys. My hope is that they are available in a majority of markets, while I know that there are a couple that probably are not. So keep that in mind. I know that they won't be available in every single market. And my hope is that for a wide majority of you, most of these are going to land. But not only that about availability, a lot of them come in at what I think is a really good price point for what you get. This is not an order from 10 down to 1. These are just 10 bourbons that I'm listing, so keep that in mind. All 10 of these will be really good options for you. Stop right now if you don't mind, jump down below, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I'd love to know that I'm able to continue to bring content to you all that you are interested in hearing about. Let me know some of your favorite readily available whiskeys that you've tried in this past year, or leave me a list of your top 5 or 10. I'd love to look through those. Let's go ahead and start with the first bottle. It's actually what I'm drinking right now, and that happens to be the new bottling of the Evan Williams 1783. So we see a little bottle design for it, and we see the proof rise up a little bit. I really enjoy 1783. I have for a long time. When I first got into whiskey, I remember doing an event on Main Street. I was representing the company that I worked for, and there was someone there who was with Evan Williams, and I remember him walking over to me and saying, "Here, son, you ever tried this before?" "What is it?" "Well, it's Evan Williams 1783. "I hadn't. What do you like about it?" "Well, I like it because it's a little bit lighter. It's really easy to drink, and it has this little bit of a peach note to it." And I remember trying it and saying, "Well, you're kind of right." And I've never had that kind of softer peach note in a whiskey before. Now, on the channel, you've probably heard me talk about it in a couple of pours before, but at this time, I thought it was really unique. Now, 1783 isn't something that I had readily gone to since then, but when I saw that they had brought the proof up a little bit more, I thought this is a bottle I should definitely revisit. And at the $17 that it is here in town, for its drinkability, for its sweetness and balance, specifically coming out of Heaven Hill, it's not overly nutty, it's not overly grainy, it has a good amount of spice, a really easy drinking profile. I think it would be shared by a lot of different types of whiskey drinkers. And again, it has a little bit of this peach tone to it. And I think it's one of those things that you will be able to share with a lot of folks. And it's very easy to go back and get another bottle when you run out. Jumping into number 2 comes from Old Forester, and it's their Signature 100. Now, I have thought about this and whether or not I was going to go with the Signature 100 or the early times, and I went with Signature 100. There's something about it I keep leaning to. It's got some boldness, it's got some good spice, some toasted nuts, a little bit of the char, that kind of banana thing going on, some maple sweetness. There's a lot of flavors to love about this bottle. I also have to say, in conjunction with the old-fashioned syrups that they have, make a really awesome old-fashioned really simply. If you want to kick up the richness, if you want to kick up the spice a little bit from 1783 at $20, I just don't see another bottle that I seem to lean to as much as I do the Old Forester Signature 100. Now, I just finished my bottle of this that I was working on, but the third bottle on this list is one of the new runs from Benchmark, and this is their foolproof bottling. The foolproof Benchmark is 125 proof. It is a little bit lower tone, so you get a little bit more grain. You get a little more of the chocolate and earthy characteristics in it. But $21 for 125 proof whiskey, that's a pretty good deal to me. I've had several people, now while I've not tried it myself, say that the single barrel is a really good product in that line. I've yet to try it for myself, but again, that's at $25. So I would say either of those two, if you want to give them a chance and they're available on your shelf, don't hesitate to pick either of them up. Now, don't expect anything crazy when it comes from this foolproof. Again, maybe with the single barrel, but again, the foolproof is going to have an earthier profile. It does have some grain to it. It's a little unrefined. However, if you want something that's got a good amount of proof, if you want to make some boozier cocktails, or you just want a good drinker that's got a big pow to it, benchmark foolproof it is. Now, I know that this one is only available here in Kentucky as far as I am told, but it happens to be one of my favorite bottled and bond products, and that is the Old Bardstown Bottled and Bond. This is a $21 bottle here, and to me, it's like an old fashioned in a glass. I have very fond memories getting together with folks in my backyard and other events too, where the Old Bardstown has just been a staple. I don't want to see it as a Kentucky only release as being all a negative. I think it's really nice because it's really nice as a gift, and an inexpensive gift as well. People who are not from Kentucky, maybe they don't have access to the Old Bardstown, and so it's really nice to give as a gift to somebody who likes whiskey. Maybe they're not a super crazy collector or anything like that, but it's a really nice showing of Kentucky bourbon. I feel like if you want something that has a good amount of spices in there, maybe some of the cloves, some of the pepper spice, a little bit of the wood, but you also like the typical bourbon sweetness, that's what you're going to find in the Old Bardstown Bottled and Bond. This next one might be a little polarizing to folks in the wild turkey camp, but I am going with the Russell's Tenure. The Russell's Tenure here is only about $27, $28. And the reason I'm saying this over the Wild Turkey 101, I'm going to assume that if you're watching a video like this, you're probably already familiar with Wild Turkey 101, and you're probably already familiar with Rare Breed. If you're not, those are two products that come highly recommended, but the price point of Russell's Tenure at this $27, it's a little more than the Wild Turkey 101, I admit, but it's such a good drinker. I feel like you get the brown sugar, you get the honey, you get the caramel, you get the vanilla notes with the citrus and spice that you typically like from Wild Turkey products in general, and it's just really easy drinking. I think it's unassumedly so. I like all the products that come out of the Russell's camp, but I think that the Russell's Tenure is the one that is almost always looked over, and it's so inexpensive in order to pick up, and it's very easy to replace. It's a really solid drinker, a little light in proof, a little light in body, but it's really easy to drink. I feel like it does have some nuance to it for what it is. And not only that, we're talking about something that is age stated 10 years. Now, I know there's some other products out there that have some age statements on them and they're still inexpensive, but come on, $26, $27, $28, under $30 for a 10-year age stated 90 proof product that has the flavors that we know are so solid from Wild Turkey. Let's take it. All right, number 6 on the list is something that I feel like I definitely see people always overlook, and that happens to be the Mikter US1 single barrel straight rye. Now, this is 42.4%, so it's nothing crazy. However, again, for cocktails, this one makes a really unique old fashioned. It has the rye that kind of cuts through the mix, but there's also this herbal, woodsy, earthy characteristic you've probably heard me talk about in other videos before that is akin to, I don't know, something about the Sazerac 18. Something that is, I noticed too in the Pursuit United rye. There's something that has just a really unique character to this that I feel like is a little bit unlike other ryes on the market. This is a $40 product, so we're stepping up a little bit in price, but it's readily available and it's really pleasing to drink on its own. Again, makes a really unique cocktail. If you're into ryes, it's definitely approachable. I highly recommend. If you haven't checked it out, add it to your suggestion list. Number 7 on the list is something that I've talked about a while back in a video, and I'll link it up here, but it's the Jack Daniel's single barrel proof. Now, or barrel select, whatever it is that they call it. But I remember wondering to myself, why do the Jack Daniel's barrel proof single barrels seem to always sit on store shelves, while the Old Forester single barrel strengths always sell out whenever people bring them into their stores? What is it about that always does it? Is it brand? Is it marketing? Is it actually flavor? Now, I'd argue that one of the best products that is always sitting around on the shelf right now, especially in this kind of price point, would be this Jack Daniels right here. You're talking about a nice, rich pop of flavor. Usually has a little bit of that cinnamon and that banana that you're used to coming from that camp, but you get something that's rich, you get something that's barrel proof, and you get a lot of variance because they're single barrels and they're gonna be different depending on the store that you go to or where you get it from. But we're talking about a product that's about $60 for a 750 ml. But I feel like a lot of stores also have them in 375s, and those come in around $35. So if you're not quite ready to jump into the $60 price point and really give it a shot, maybe you've been burned before from the Old Forester barrel strengths or other Jack Daniels products, if you're able to find a 375 nearby, you can a little bit more affordably give it a try and see what you think of it. And like I said, I feel like I see them sitting on store shelves all the time. I feel like they're really slept on. Maybe it's because it carries the Jack Daniels name, but it definitely has the Brown-Forman stamp of approval. My next product comes from a distillery that I'm obviously very fond of if you're familiar with the channel. That's Four Roses with their Small Batch Select. Now, the Small Batch Select, when it came out, and again, I know this is relatively limited in markets. At least it was when it rolled out, and I know that they're continuing to try and roll it out in other markets. To me, when it came out, this is like 104 proof, non-chill filtered. It definitely hit some of the buzzwords that people are talking about. However, I thought the flavor profile that it had was like a miniature version of the Four Roses LE. So if you want something that's like a little bit more elevated or complex of an experience without the price tag, Four Roses Small Batch Select. I feel like you get a little bit of the floral, you get the caramel, you get the spice, you get a lot of the flavor characteristics that I want to look for in Four Roses single barrels or in the LEs, but you get it in a little younger, a little less complex package. Now, this is not to be said that the regular small batch isn't good. It is. In yellow label, pretty nice for a mixer as well. I'd say if there was another product I wanted to suggest to you, it would be the 100 proof single barrels. These are all OBSV recipes, and they're going to vary from store to store, bottle to bottle that you pick up. However, at that $40 price range, you get a really good single barrel bourbon that has a lot of richness, a lot of oomph. I really enjoy that. That's one of the gateway products that got me into Four Roses. However, for this list today, I'm going to be suggesting the Small Batch Select. This next product I have talked about before. Again, I will try and link that video up here, but we're going to be talking about the Stellam Bourbon. Now, I did recently get a chance to try the Stellam Black. I liked it. I thought it had some really good flavors. I didn't get a chance to really sit down with it, take some notes, or compare it to the Stellam. If you're interested in hearing me compare the original Stellam with the Stellam Black, leave me a message down below. Let me know you're interested in that. However, at the $55 that this Stellam comes in at, this is a really well done blended whiskey. I feel like it has a lot of the flavors that I look for in a whiskey. I feel like it has just enough complexity that I don't mind sipping on it. And I feel like it has just enough of a value that I can go back and get more whenever I run out of a bottle. I feel like it has a nice wave of spice to it while also having a really pleasing body. It's got some caramel sweetness, basically all the flavors that you would expect in traditional bourbon fashion. Maybe a little bit on the youthful side. I know this doesn't necessarily ring well with all types of bourbon drinkers, but again, for an everyday list of available pours, it's a pretty solid one. And last but certainly not least is probably the most different of all the things that we've talked about before. And I know a lot of people will probably be surprised that I didn't pick another one in this Whiskey Row series, but we're talking about Old Forester's 1910. There are a lot of people who always will say 1920 is the way to go. And I agree. It's got a really nice old flavor profile. For someone who likes oak, me, I think it is a little surprising that not a lot of the pours on this list really showcase that. But I do think that in some of my other lists or some of the other products, if you're going to get into some flavors that have a little bit more oak, I kind of just jump out of this price range or jump out of some of the accessibility. But I will say, 1920 is a solid pour. But the one I want to talk about today is the one that I kept going back to in 2021, and that's 1910. So the Old Forester Whiskey Row Series 1910 is a double-barreled product. The second barrel is an alligator char, and it just has these toasty, caramelized, sweet characteristics to it that I feel like come off slightly desserty for one, but two, I feel like it's better than the Woodford Double Oaked or the Woodford Double Oaked. And I know that's a product that a lot of people really go after, but I feel like the 1910 just does that showcase a little bit better. It's a nice complementing bourbon to other things, and it's not offensive on the palate. and it's not offensive on the price point. I want to say this is probably $50 to $60 depending on your market. And again, hopefully this is available in most markets. I'm not sure what the distribution has looked like for the Whiskey Row series, but it seems like it's been pretty widely available. It seems like people seem to find 1920, 1910 pretty frequently. But it's one that I kept coming back to at the end of this year. I felt like even in tastings where I had maybe the birthday bourbon, or tastings where I had a President's Choice or some single barrels, I kept really enjoying the flavor that came out of 1910. It honestly might be one of my favorites that's on this entire list. But I wanted to go ahead and get this list out together for whatever it is worth to you all. I'm hoping that you all either have had a chance to try these, or they're in your market and maybe you have a new suggestion of something you're going to try in the future. As I mentioned earlier in the video, leave me a message down below. Let me know what you thought of the list, if you tried products on this list and what you thought about them. Or leave your own top 5 or top 10 list down below. I'd love to check out what kind of things you all have found to be either a good price point, a good bargain, or just things you've enjoyed drinking in the year 2021. Thanks for tuning in, as always, everyone. If you want to get more content, tune into the Entry Proof podcast. That's a podcast that I do with Drew P. Whiskey. He's also here on YouTube, and we're usually live on his channel Thursday nights doing live streams, blind flights, talking about our barrel picks, maybe having guests join us, all sorts of things. If you want to support what I'm doing here on the channel, what Drew's doing, consider becoming a member of Patreon. That's patreon.com/entryproofpodcast. Get some swag, get some access to our barrel picks, some behind the scenes information. Thanks again, everybody. Until next time, we'll see you all later.